webinar features representatives of the Massey Commission and the Sangamon County community who will discuss their efforts to translate a community's outrage into meaningful action. With that, allow me to briefly introduce our four panelists. Dr. Lisa Johnson is an associate professor of sociology at the University of Illinois Springfield and holds a doctorate in sociology from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. Prior to joining UIS, Dr. Johnson was a tenured faculty member in the sociology department at Cal State Chico. And in addition to her academic work, Dr. Johnson is a respected community advocate in Sangamon County and joins us today to help bring necessary context for understanding the work being done in Sangamon County, both through and alongside the Massey Commission. Rakisha Falon is the Associate Provost for Strategy, Communication, and Engagement at the SIU School of Medicine and is the school's Chief Marketing and Communications Officer. Ms. Falon has been instrumental in helping to bring the Massey Commission to fruition, bringing to bear her experience in both governmental and community relations. Dr. Jerry Cruz is the Dean and Provost of the SIU School of Medicine, as well as the CEO of SIU Medicine. During his leadership tenure at the School of Medicine, Dr. Cruz has spearheaded multiple anti-racism initiatives aimed at improving equity outcomes across the organization. He has extensive training and experience in family medicine and currently co-chairs the Massey Commission. And last but certainly not least, Joanne Johnson is a former member of the Illinois State Police, where she served for 28 years before retiring with the rank of colonel. In retirement, Colonel Johnson has kept busy as a training consultant for law enforcement agencies nationwide and across all levels of government. And along with Dr. Cruz, she co-chairs the Massey Commission. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Just as a note to our audience members, we will strive to allow for some time for question and answers from the audience. However, we also want to maximize the information and conversation that we have with our four panelists. So please forgive us if we're not able to timely respond to any questions that you may pose. Feel free to use the Q&A function so that we can see whether there are questions from the audience. And if we are unable to answer any questions from the audience, please feel free to reach out to me. Our website at the Justice Collaboratory is justicehappenshere.yale.edu or to members of the Massey Commission. Thank you so much, everyone. With that, let's begin. Dr. Johnson, this first question is directed to you. As I understand it, the Massey Commission marks the latest in a long line of community-based work focusing on public safety and policing. In order to help us contextualize the work that is going on, could you please tell us about Sangamon County, the people that live there, and some of the history that has led to where things are now?
Certainly, and thank you for having me. Sangamon County has a population of about 194,000 people, but the county seat is Springfield, and it has the largest incorporated population in the county with 114,000 of that 194,000, representing about 59% of all of Sangamon County. And a lot of this racial discomfort comes from the supposed need for white citizens to keep Black folks, quote, in their place. Springfield and Sangamon County have a long history of racial discrimination and segregation. For instance, though the 186 school district lies within Springfield and educates a majority of students there, white citizens initiated several instances of white flight since the Brown v. Board of Education lawsuit and established more segregated towns and accompanying school systems outside of Springfield. This has resulted in a student population of only about 13,000 students in District 186, but there are actually 41,000 children under the age of 18 in Sangamon County, with a total of 11 different school districts in those smaller incorporated areas that have an extreme majority of white families. And while a large number of Black families reside inside of Springfield and their children attend the 186 school district, so residential segregation is truly alive and well in Springfield and Sangamon County. This is also evident in political representation. About 14% of Sangamon County residents are Black. And now recently, a fourth Black person was appointed to the county board, bringing Black representation to 14%, which is indicative of the population. So that's 4 Black representatives out of 29 total board members. The city of Springfield was sued and then issued a consent decree by the U.S. Department of Justice in 1986 because of racial discrimination, which made them switch to an aldermanic city council, with each county council member representing wards of the city, each with roughly the same number of citizens, around 11,400, and with one ward, Ward 2, having a majority of citizens of color so that marginalized citizens were not stripped of their political power. So the city of Springfield now has 3 Black alders, but the Ward 5 alders' votes have been split quite often because she does not represent a solidly Black majority district. So she does not solidly stand with Wards 2 and 3. There's also a social class divide, which is apparent in the fact that many white families who do live inside the Springfield city limits have their children educated in one of the 6 parochial schools or private schools, or they do homeschooling. So as a result, Black students make up the highest racial proportion of students at 43%, with whites at 37%, and 12% of 2 races or more, and only 3.3% Hispanic. However, 186 has 41% of its students on free and reduced lunch, which is a clear indication of the socioeconomic dynamics at play. Also, 88% of the teachers in 186 are white, and 6% are Black, even though the school system was also sued in 1974, and it was delivered a consent decree in 1976 to increase proportionally the number of Black teachers to fit the student population. And that mandate has still not even been tangentially met. Black teachers right now represent 6% instead of the 20% mandated to represent the Black population in the city. So latest census results place Sangamon County demographics at 80% white, but of that, 3% are Hispanic and white, 14% are Black, 3% are 2 or more races, and 4% are Asian, while the county seat is 70% white, with 3.5% of those as Hispanic and 20% Black. Researchers have consistently pointed to Springfield as one of the most segregated cities in the United States. And at nearly 41%, the Springfield area's Black poverty rate is higher than that of all of the downstate cities in Illinois, while the white poverty rate is only at 11%. So these are very, very stark differences between all of the groups in Springfield, and all of these differences are represented in the amount of unrest that showed when Sonya Massey was killed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. It sounds as if again, the historical and demographic and political context of this was very challenging. Luckily, in spite of what seemed to be very, very difficult challenges, the county was able to at least impanel the Massey Commission through a joint action by Chair Andy Van Meter with support from State Senator Doris Turner. My next question will be directed to Ms. Fallon. It seems as if it takes obviously more than just an official declaration to get something like the Massey Commission off the ground. Can you discuss how the commission came into reality, including the selection of its members and the identification of its key areas of focus?
Yes, and you're right. It's much more difficult than just the declaration because of the context that Dr. Johnson just laid out. And that is the backdrop in which we're trying to move forward. So I'm really grateful for the way that she's laid that out, because it really does kind of lay bare some of the challenges that we've had. We wouldn't be here without the leadership of Andy Van Meter and Doris Turner. They created the commission, they cleared the path for funding, and they selected the co-chairs, and they also selected SIU School of Medicine to provide some administrative oversight of the commission. And then they sort of went hands off, and that's important, and I'm glad that's the way it was built. Our one deliverable in the way that we were created was to submit a comprehensive report at the end of a year of working within the community to identify solutions. And that time clock started last September. And so by this September, October, we are hopeful that we can make some recommendations about how to move this community forward. The co-chairs were tasked with not just putting the commission together, but really filling out the commission. So there was a call out to the community for applicants to submit their plans and ideas or why they should be commissioners. And from that response that we got, which was very large from the community, 14 commissioners were selected by the co-chairs. And we also, at that time, made the decision that other applicants that had applied could serve very aptly and ably as work group members. So we established the core commission of 14, and then we also established 4 separate work groups, and those were filled out by another 12 to 14 people each. I think one of the challenges that we've had in building the infrastructure for this has been a couple of things. Number one is the context that Dr. Johnson just laid out. The other is establishing what kind of body we want it to be. We are not an investigative body where we're examining every detail of a single tragedy. But really, we're designed to be a forum for broader analysis so that we can look into and have inquiry into the systems and the conditions and the context that are the backdrop for the killing of Sonya Massey. And so for that reason, we're much broader in scope and in analysis than just looking at what happened with Sean Grayson when he walked into that home. And so we've really, really tried to ground our work in this understanding that it is systemic, it is a fabric, and these are things that we need to look at as a whole. Another dynamic I think that has been helpful for us to understand as we have built the commission is that, as Dr. Johnson said, yes, this is one of the most segregated communities in America. But also, we are building a commission and trying to move it forward in the midst of profound tragedy and trauma. And so figuring out how to navigate the very specific political policy initiatives that we need to look at, while at the same time making sure we're being thoughtful about how we create forums and spaces where community members who feel disengaged, who feel disenfranchised, who feel hurt by the system, we're asking them to come and submit their ideas and again put them in a place of vulnerability, has been a real challenge for us. But it's something that we've been mindful of from the beginning, is that while we are doing this work, we're also naming and navigating profound community trauma that is not just this incident and tragedy, but it is hundreds of years of trauma and tragedy. And so these are some of the dynamics that our commissioners have had to navigate in. These are some of the ways that we've had to kind of work to address them. One of the ways we've had to work to address things is we've had to really understand the importance of legitimacy. This really came out of one of our very first conversations before the commission was even fully established and the commissioners were named. Some of us had the opportunity to engage Tracy Mears on just how to set this up and how to go about it. And we had other folks across the country that we were also appealing to for advice, including the folks that established the Ferguson Commission. But one of the primary tensions that we have had to navigate is something she named really early on, and that is the issue of legitimacy, right? We are a commission that is created by county board and accountable to county board, yet we need to be separate and distinct and independent from county board. Also, the community needs to believe that we actually have the power to enact the things that we're recommending and that these things are going to be carried out with some legitimacy. So navigating that tension of independence from the county board while at the same time of pressuring the county board to act has been, I won't call it a problem, I'll call it a tension that we've had to navigate as we have developed the organization. I would say another important factor that we've had to really take into consideration is really making sure that the community thinks about us in a couple of different ways. One is the community needs to see the Massey Commission as an organization or as a structure that is willing to be activist in nature. The community has really wanted to see that we are willing to stand toe to power. We're willing to challenge county board. We're willing to, from the outside, take an activist posture. And that has been important to a large group of our folks in Sangamon County. But then there's this other piece of advocacy where we need to work with existing policymakers and folks that are in positions of authority to try to make change from the inside. So this constant tension, again, not a problem we can solve, but a tension that we've had to navigate is to when can we be activists, when are we advocates, and also just recognizing that you need both in order to move the commission forward. So those are some of the ways that we have been structured, and those are some of the structures that we've had to navigate to get to this point. We're 6 months in, or just over 6 months in, and we're really proud of the work we've done so far. We've been able to bring on new leaders to help steer us forward, with Dr. Kelly Hurst, with Sonya Massey, a member of the Massey family, and with Adam White. And we're just really happy at the progress we're making, but we're learning a lot as we listen.
Thank you so much. And not to make this even more challenging, but it sounds as if the Massey Commission has assumed no small task ahead of itself. And so in addition to that challenging historical context, you also have the assumption of a very broad mission and an ambitious one at that. With that, Dr. Cruz, the membership of the Massey Commission includes a number of people working in medicine, health, and related fields, including yourself as co-chair. Can you discuss why this is, including the ways in which the Massey Commission's mission overlaps with the goals and approaches of the health field?
Sure. I mean, we do have good participation from many in the healthcare professions. I think when you take a look at the killing of Sonya Massey, she actually was calling for help. And so we're dealing here with helping professions responding to calls. And Springfield and the Sangamon County has not had a very good record for that, actually. As you said, Sonya Massey's death occurred in July of 2024, but in December of 2022, Earl Moore Jr. was killed at the hands of emergency medical personnel when he called for help. He clearly had a medical problem at that time. And also in March of 2021, Gregory Small Jr. was severely injured at the hands of the police when he called for help. So these are the three that we had recognized as when we started the process of developing the Massey Commission. And we knew that we had to deal with things related to the helping professions, many of those related to the medical profession as well. Also, on the night that we had our first official meeting in October of 2024, there was a CBS News report of the work of an investigative reporter that had found that there were 8 more suspicious deaths over the previous 20 years that called into question the response of the helping profession police. All 8 of these also had mental health or direct medical problems that were related to that issue. And then there were many 50 civil rights complaints that were unearthed as well. So we knew that there was a major problem and that a lot of it involved health and mental health. Also, as Ms. Fallon mentioned, we got applications for our various positions for commissioners and work group members. And we had a lot of applications from those from the medical and the health professions as well. I'll just mention that we had lots and lots of social workers that applied and have been great members of our team as well. The other issue related to this, though, is that all of these in Sangamon County and many across the nation highlight public health issues. So mental health issues, gun violence, issues of health equity, equity in access, equity in the delivery of care. And we have taken a bit of a focus on mental health issues through our work groups. So we've noted that there are many issues related to mental health. We are battling now many false narratives that have been developed and are rampant about mental health. We we've taken into consideration mental health issues related to the helping professions and those who are responding, and also the mental health of the victims, those who have been killed or injured, and the need for things like better training, de-escalation training, simulation, maybe even a development of AI issues for that. And I think we've also noticed that that issue then is one of the broader examinations that we're doing, looking at the organization and funding of mental health issues and how that can better be organized for a county like ours and a nation like ours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cruz. And you touched upon kind of the interrelationship between public health and health generally, and policing, to the extent that the three individuals that you talked about, Ms. Massey, Mr. Moore, and Mr. Small, these were individuals who were calling for help. And historically, the way we have responded to those calls for help has been by deploying policing as the response. And Colonel Johnson, you obviously bring a tremendous amount of policing practice experience, not just in your nearly 30 years as an officer, but also in your role as a policing executive and now as a policing trainer and consultant. It's tempting for some to say that kind of in those last 30 years and even longer, that many things have happened in policing, but little has changed. Can you discuss how policing has evolved during your tenure, and what opportunities are present now that may not have been available when you first started your career? Oh, sorry, you're still muted, Colonel Johnson.
How's that? Better? Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, I started policing in the late 80s, and so many things have advanced and evolved since I began my career. Again, my career was with the Illinois State Police, so I started my career as a road trooper in the Chicagoland area where I'm originally from. And in the late 80s, let's just start with technology. I mean, the evolution goes from technology all the way to world events that have happened over that course of time. Technology, there were no in-car cameras. There absolutely were no body-worn cameras. And so that's a huge evolution in technology that I have to admit, many in my profession did not see as a good thing, did not welcome that advancement in technology. But I was the opposite. I spent 6 years of my career as the lieutenant colonel and colonel of the internal affairs for the Illinois State Police. And what I found in that time was that body-worn cameras, in-car cameras would exonerate officers often quite a bit. And when we explained that to officers, it was a huge hill to climb. But when we explained that to them, that this technology not only catches officers who are out there not doing the job in the right way and not paying honor to the profession and the power that the profession brings with it, but it would also exonerate officers that were doing exactly that. And so that was one of the huge advancements in technology during my career that I could speak to. But when we shift to world events, global events, I was a road trooper in Chicago in 1992 when Rodney King was beat. And but for the traffic helicopter, that the world wouldn't have seen that. And policing almost changed overnight for me personally after that horrific event happened. The next night that I had to work, I stopped a vehicle and I was immediately asked by the occupants if I was going to Rodney King them. And that became a coined phrase that I started to hear more and more and more. And at that point, I was merely a road trooper. I had not stepped into the role of instruction for the state police or anything like that yet, but I subsequently did. And I saw that as an opportunity to let my colleagues know and my coworkers know that this is what the world, this is how we're being viewed. And this is not good, guys, right? This is not good. I am not ashamed to say that when I first came on the job, we were never trained in admitting when we were wrong to the people we were dealing with. We make mistakes. We're human. I might make a mistake on a traffic stop. I may stop a car because I read the plate to the dispatcher over my radio and the plate came back as stolen. So I do an entire felony traffic stop, people face down on the pavement, all of the things. I may have transposed the numbers or the letters when I read that. And then when that happens, the reasonable thing to do is would pick people up, dust them off, apologize for my error, and send them on their way safely. We were not trained to do that. So there was no transparency, which is another thing that has evolved greatly since I first started policing. Transparency is the new buzzword. Be transparent. Tell people why you're doing what you're doing to them. Explain why you're asking them these questions, why you're asking them to get out of the car, why they can't make a phone call just yet, why you don't want them to speak on their phone or smoke a cigarette or whatever it might be. Explain why you're doing what you're doing. It's procedural justice. Give people a voice, not a thing in the late 80s. Why do I have to do this? Because I'm telling you, you need to do this. We now give people a voice. We should be giving people a voice. Once you let people know what's happening to them, people just want to know what's going to happen in this interaction. And if you share that transparency, if you share the process, people are more inclined to comply with the process. Again, if everything is being done the way it should be done. Another thing, we have since realized we are not the best people to handle mental health calls. When you are trained up to be the police, you are trained to go handle the problem, go handle the call, go handle what people need from you. People don't call us when they're having a great day. They call us when they need some help. So we're programmed to go help, go help. Well, we now realize we are not the best practitioners to help with all problems. And so now, with the start and the evolution of non-law enforcement personnel handling mental health concerns, not 911, but another number that citizens can call when a family member is having a mental break, or, how many times Gregory Smalls, his mom said, he's having a mental episode, don't hurt him. Please don't hurt him. So these family members know their family and their loved ones way more than I would. And they're saying, yes, this looks scary. This looks dangerous. Please don't hurt them. But when we treat every problem as a nail and all we have is a hammer, it doesn't work out well, right? So now we know there are other subject matter experts, other people that can better handle these issues, and we welcome that. It's not widespread. A lot of people think that the police are pushing back against getting that taken off our plate, if you will. We recognize, and we get training, critical incident training. We get training how to deal with people with autism or on the spectrum. We get that training, but even with that training, when you are in the moment, you can only hope that you resort to the training and then carry out the function in the right way. There are better people to handle those problems. Now, when we shift over to world events, the biggest change I saw was post 9/11. And I don't mean in our world, of course, our world saw a dramatic shift, but I just mean within policing. That terrorist event changed how we did our job, policing across the country. Before that, we had community-oriented policing. We had cops, and we were told to get out of the car and go talk to people. And don't just interact with people when you're telling them to turn around and put their hands behind their back. Interact with people just for the sake of interacting, so they get to know who you are. That event changed that. We went from a community-oriented police mindset, where, if you recall, under the Clinton administration, the the federal government established approximately 14 community-oriented policing divisions across the country, focused on problem-solving communities' issues in a non-arbitrarial way, right? We went from that to Homeland Security. And all the funding went to Homeland Security. We started purchasing militarized vehicles. We started purchasing military-like gear for our officers, and everyone was a terrorist. And then we started making our traffic stops go from 15 minutes to 45 minutes because someone might have the last name Muhammad. And now we're calling ICE agents out on the side of the road. And we're doing all these things because that's what we were instructed to do because of that tragic thing that happened to our country. Well, now that changed police community relationships drastically, because we were more militarized as an organization and no more community police positive relationships. And it's only really spiraled since then. The opportunities that come out of that, though, Jorge, I think, is that we have since realized that it's okay to understand that we have bias because we're human. We carry that bias with us. That bias absolutely will impact how we treat people based on stereotypes, based on personal experiences, based on a number of things, our upbringing, our schooling, all of the things. And so we bring that to work with us. Those biases came long before we put these uniforms on. It came ever since we were raised up. And we now don't so much see that as a bad word to talk about bias. It's a 4-letter word, but it's not a 4-letter word in every sense of the word. And so if we can continue to get more officers to recognize their bias, understand that they carry it, and then get motivated to choose bias-free responses when dealing with the community, that will greatly help police community relationships.
Thank you so much, Colonel Johnson. Again, all of this is kind of presenting, I feel like adding challenges to an already difficult situation, but you did identify multiple opportunities for change, right? The culture is different now than it was back in the late 1980s when you started your career, and that does come with it a number of openings for change, not just kind of against the interests of the police, but also with support from them, with support from the profession as well. I want to take a step back from discussing the work of the commission for just a moment, and return to the community focus as well. And so with that, we'll go back to Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson, can you speak about the work, the community work that was already underway prior to the creation of the Massey Commission, and what that work sought and still seeks to achieve? And then as an extension of that, what hopes may you have about the role that the commission will play in advancing that work, and with it, what reservations may you harbor as well?
Okay, sure. There were already several community actions in play when Sonya Massey was murdered and when the Massey Commission was formed. But a lot of that work got diverted, of course, after the murder, because the whole city, the whole country was mourning, and rightly so. But before the murder, we were working on representation of Black people in economics through the Black Chamber of Commerce and other initiatives that created more of a voice for not just those middle class Black people who have already, sort of gotten ahead, but for working class and lower income Black citizens. And we had just that April, a day-long conference where Black citizens could get together and discuss things that were going on in this town, and it was called the State of Black Springfield. We had all of our Black health professionals, mental health professionals, educators, our aldermen, and our Black county board members, and our several ministers representing all 5 of the social institutions in any society. So that was family, government, economy, education, right? All of those. And so we were working on the challenges that Black people still had. I mentioned the suits before, but also the police had been sued. The fire department had been sued. Like so many people, it felt to members of the Black citizenry that you couldn't get anything done in Springfield unless you sued somebody. And so they wanted to take a different avenue, and they were tired of that, way of pursuing things. So we had several initiatives after the State of Black Springfield where people were going to work on the economics through the Black Chamber of Commerce. After the murder, a lot of community work was steered towards community healing and mental health as we tried to deal with that loss, and as several national groups started coming into Springfield. Then shortly afterwards, there was also an upsurge in involvement around homelessness and injustices toward the unhoused. It appears that a lot more people are involved in community work now than before Sonya's murder or the Massey Commission. We don't see a lot of people at the Massey Commission meetings, but we do see a lot of work by different entities in the community now, especially at things like city council meetings and such. As far as reservations are concerned, I would say that my doubts are still placed solely on the Sangamon County Board, the Springfield City Council, and the 186 School District. The Springfield Sangamon Growth Alliance is an entity that is supported by both the city of Springfield and the county, and Sangamon County. And neither of those administrations has pushed the Growth Alliance toward development on the east side of town. So when we were talking about mental health, one of the things that we also mentioned quite a bit is the social determinants of health, which is why I mentioned the poverty rate, 41% for Blacks versus 11% for whites. What we see right now, the lowest income citizens and children live on this east side of town, and many of the Black and marginalized people look to Ward 2 in the city and Ward 3 representation in the city because of the fact that, like, Sonya Massey lived in Woodside Township, but Woodside Township only had a 4% Black population. So what it appears is that no matter where you live in Springfield or Sangamon County, you still look toward the Ward 2 and 3 representation in the city, because those are the people who are representing a lot of concerns by Black citizens. When the Sangamon County Board rejected the Massey Commission's first recommendation to instate a sheriff's recall referendum, a lot of marginalized citizens immediately did sort of an about turn on the Massey Commission and stopped coming to the meetings with a concerted statement like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I told you these white people weren't going to do anything about racism in this town. And so we still see this resistance among the dominant group to change the dynamics, the power dynamics in the city and the county. And that's where many of my reservations are concerned, even to the point where, we have people, even councilmen who side with the Wards 2 and 3 councilmen are treated as traitors by the mayor or other councilmen. It's really turned into a sort of heated dynamic where people are trying to get some type of relief, and the dominant group seems rather resistant. So that's where many of my reservations lie at this point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. Rakisha, to jump back to your earlier statements about kind of the very broad mission that the Massey Commission has adopted and assumed, again, incredibly ambitious, to facilitate the work of the commission and to kind of break it up into smaller pieces. The commission is divided into those 4 working groups that you discussed earlier. To recap, there's the law enforcement hiring, training, wellness, and cultural competency working group, the working group on integrated mental health services and emergency response, the group on economic disparities and service accessibility, and then finally, the community education on public health and safety working group. Really broad areas that encompass, virtually all aspects of public administration in one way or another. You did talk a bit about how the commission came to settle upon these areas of focus, which makes sense given its broad mission. What exactly does the commission hope to accomplish through these working groups? Again, how may kind of perceptions of resistance factor into the work of these working groups going forward?
Yeah, the original design of these very more narrowed focus for the focus groups, we took some lessons from Ferguson and the Ferguson Commission and how it was set up, because we also, like them, agreed that, these issues of systemic racism are linked in ways that we cannot pull apart. So having the work groups allows us to do that in a really specific way. But there is another reason why the work groups work so well. It's really giving the opportunity to not just have the full commission have discussions and push recommendations out. We wanted forums in which we could generate grassroots solutions, community-based solutions, and different kinds of conversations that could go a little bit deeper and wider than the full commission. And so it's just one of the ways that we try to establish forums for broader community involvement, for community-driven solutions, so that the recommendations that are made are more effective and are more culturally relevant. As far as the topics, law enforcement practices, that was something we had to do, of course. Mental health services is a real nexus to the issues regarding the deaths that we were talking about. Community education, some of these issues around community education, Dr. Johnson just talked about, but was also about what kinds of accountability structures need to be in place for the community to feel like they have a way to move forward. And then the economic disparities group, they're looking at broad issues of the social determinants of health and safety, but there's no way to have a conversation about systemic racism without having a conversation about economics. But these groups have really been designed to really gather different kinds of voices than we might hear at a full commission meeting. And again, fostering greater buy-in, greater support for the community, and again, getting at this issue of legitimacy.
Thank you so much. Dr. Cruz, now that the commission's work is in full swing, and as it approaches its deadline for presenting its recommendations later this year, how has the commission gone about fulfilling this task? Are there any policy options that have already captured the commission's attention and that are likely to be included among its recommendations? Or alternatively, are there any that have already been excluded from further consideration? Sorry, you're still on mute, Dr. Cruz.
Yeah, sorry about that. There certainly are and have been a number of policy issues that came to the fore initially that needed to be addressed and solved. And then, I'm going to answer this by separating that from the issues that are related to Dr. Johnson's comment on the needed change in power dynamic and the systemic changes that are needed. So the commission, did address the recall of public officials and has had some positive legislation about that. We specifically made some recommendations related to hiring reform for the police, and that now is moved into legislative action in the state of Illinois, for the state of Illinois, actually, which is very good. We recognize the need for investigation of the various events that I mentioned earlier in the first answer. And then we also recognize the needs that we had in mental health issues, the gaps that we had, the need that we had for some broader program. And so the 708 Mental Health Board is now moving along with its own commission. And as Rakisha mentioned, the work groups now have some significant momentum. And so now in the last few months, of our assigned time. We are waiting for those recommendations to come in and to address as a commission. Just one specifically, the one economic disparities group actually has 6 things that could require legislative or policy action, and we're just waiting to see how those are fleshed out. So the other issue now relates to how are we going to get to the momentum that we need for the systemic change that's absolutely necessary. Dr. Johnson noticed that we'd had a decline in attendance of some of the Massey Commission groups. And I'll just say I felt it, particularly a couple of months ago, a waning interest, a general malaise, a lack of involvement by some of the leading civic, social, and business leaders. Actually, if I could digress just for a minute, one thing that's been really important to me is a book, The Essential Kerner Commission Report, that was edited and introduced by Jelani Cobb. And he wrote in, well, the Kerner Commission in 1968 actually wrote that this on the very first page, this will require a commitment to national action, compassionate, massive, and sustained, backed by the resources of the most powerful and the richest nation in the earth. From every American, it will require new attitudes, new understanding, and above all, new will. The paragraph before, he wrote this: to pursue our present course will involve the continuing polarization of the American community and ultimately the destruction of basic democratic values. Oh man, we're in a battle, at the moment. And the same factors that were operative for George Floyd in 2020 and in 2015 in Ferguson and all of the various things that happened are really happening, and they're active, and they're the factors that we have right now here in Springfield as well. So this commission will not be successful unless in some way we can kind of set the community on fire for this and get active, vocal, visible, participatory support from everyone, from government, from schools, from the academic community, from the business community, corporate leaders, from the leaders in medical arena, health, social services, the activist community. This is the task now, is to get everyone on board to set something in motion and set some plan in motion that will lead to this systemic change that's needed, to the culture change that's needed, and will start it moving at least.
Thank you, Dr. Cruz. Colonel Johnson, I want to jump off of what Dr. Cruz has kind of introduced us, which is, again, seemingly adding more challenges to what's already a very, very challenging situation for the commission. But the commission's deliberations are happening at a time when political division is high and where funding for new initiatives is imperiled by the widespread withdrawal of federal financial support for state and local governments. How is the commission working to sustain the political movement that led to its creation so that its recommendations are ultimately acted upon? And does the commission find itself having to temper its deliberations in response to the local, state, and federal political climate? No small question to answer, but I'm directing it to you.
Well, it's a great question and absolutely a necessary one to pose, because there has been concern. That concern primarily started with this new administration. Right out the gate, Department of Justice touched, rolled back, Civil Rights Division rolled back everything that would normally address the concerns and issues that our community has, that communities like ours nationwide have, is seemingly not in the forefront of this administration's mind. A major topic of concern for us specifically in our area was regarding the agreement that was reached between the Department of Justice and 3 important stakeholders: Sheriff Paula Crouch, State's Attorney Millhiser, and County Board Chairman Andy Van Meter. They were the ones who put their signatures on the agreement between themselves and the DOJ, addressing primarily issues of reform, if you will, at the sheriff's office. And that investigation was done in November of 2024. The agreement came very shortly thereafter. And so that raised a concern amongst us on the commission and community members as a whole. Was it thorough enough? Because it happened so quickly and the report came so quickly. And the report didn't have the answers that a lot of the community members wanted to know, and a lot of our commissioners wanted to know, and work group members wanted to know, which is basically what went wrong. What went wrong that caused Deshaun Grayson to be in your midst? What went wrong to cause him to be at that house that evening? There's no secret that his past employment history is suspect at best. And so that was blaring in everyone's face. And I think we wanted that report to point to some of those inadequacies in the hiring process. And it really didn't. And so since then, we've had requests to go outside of the Department of Justice and get an independent contractor to do an investigation. As Rakisha said, we're not an investigative body. So when the citizens pose these questions and request to us, all we can do is try to find a way, if we can, to fulfill that. So that was one of the concerns. But I am happy to say that since that agreement was signed, since the new administration has come into play, we have met with the stakeholders that I mentioned previously. They've assured us that they intend to honor the agreement as written. We assured them that we would be watching, essentially, and making sure that they do honor the agreement as written. But we also informed them at that point that we wish that report would have been a little meatier, if you will, or a little more thoroughly done. As Dr. Cruz just said, what we really need is the engagement of all of these other communities, civic, social, business. We need them to be actively involved. We're just one cog on the wheel. We're one spoke on the bicycle rim. We need all the spokes to be as passionate about what we're trying to change as we are. And that's what the community needs, to not look at this as just a Band-Aid approach, which is what the community thinks. That this is just a Band-Aid that they're going to put over the Black community to appease them, and then the dust will settle and we'll move on business as usual. And we're here to say that that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to initiate policy change, policing reform, the implementation of policies that might not even be in place yet. We're trying to make big moves. As one of our community members who often comes to our meetings and will stay and give public comment, we're looking for bold moves. We want to do something bold, and we want it to last after our time has ended, as this commission looks right now. This is ongoing work. This is not, okay, it's December 31st, roll up the table. This work has to continue after we're all no longer sitting in these seats. And so we're trying to set it up for that. For your final question, we are not taking our foot off the gas pedal at all. So we are not tempered in any way or apprehensive or in any way. If anything, with bringing on the new staff that Rakisha talked about, energetic, visionary, very good at what they do, already making big changes that we needed to listen to the community in order to make these changes. We're holding our meetings on the east side of Springfield. We're listening. It took us a minute. We're thinking, we were so concerned with attacking the issues that we weren't hearing those fundamental things. Bring the meeting to my neighborhood. Bring the meeting to where the people who have the lived experiences reside. And so we're doing that. We have plans to do things during Juneteenth celebration. We are just trying to listen and be more responsive to our community because we need everyone's support to be on board with what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you so much, Colonel Johnson. We're running up against the end of our allotted time, but I do want to kind of ask there's a question in the question and answer function here that I'd like to present to all of the panelists. Feel free to chime in. But I also want to kind of expand on it. So the question as written is, in our commitment to improving health equity in Sangamon County, what is our plan for disseminating best practices across Illinois and the United States in real time? Are there other groups like this that we can glean current day best practices from? And I actually want to kind of expand that because Rakisha previously talked about how the Ferguson Commission was a model for kind of getting the Massey Commission off the ground. Are there any other kind of bodies that you look toward to kind of glean either inspiration from or modeling? And you know, the Massey Commission's work is happening actually kind of after other communities around the country have confronted similar questions through similar bodies. So I'm curious as to which, if any, other groups aside from the Ferguson Commission have served as kind of inspirations for both identifying kind of the best practices that you're seeking to recommend, but also models for how you're seeking to do the work of the commission itself.
I'll make a comment. You know, I'll mention again the Essential Kerner Commission report. It highlights the 20 recommendations in a summary. They're just in bullet points. They're easy to read, and every community could take those and see how those fit. You know, it essentially gathered dust since 1968, but it's all true. And then I'll just say, our work groups really have some good information regarding that from the Yale Justice Collaboratory. Those reports that you put together for us were really fantastic, and I think that they've been very helpful to the work groups.
Thank you. We do have one final
Sir,
question.
I'd like to add something.
Oh, sorry, please go ahead, Dr.
Yes.
Johnson.
We have been meeting at the SIU School of Medicine about monthly in community work groups. A lot of the involvement in providing an equitable amount of care, mental health care and physical health care, involves having those access to resources on the east side of town that people on the west side of town have. For instance, and it's usually small things that mean a lot. For instance, we learned that there were community health workers that were employed by several different entities across Springfield. None of those community health workers were Black, and none of them worked, yes, one was, but none of them worked on the east side. And so my office right now here is on the east side. I'm on 17th Street. We've not seen community health workers here, 15th, 16th, any of those, you know, any of these areas, but we see, you know, a lot of other things that affect health and access to resources. We did just get a clinic over here from Springfield Clinic. And so that is wonderful. But there are several things, small things that we need. Grocery stores here, better transportation to jobs, more industry on the east side. All of those things are very large things that affect mental health and health. And if we could just start with community health workers, that would open up a whole range of access to resources.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. I do want to briefly provide the panelists with an opportunity to address the final two questions in our open question and answer function. These will be the last two that we addressed due to our time constraints. But the first, if I can summarize it briefly, asks about the need for kind of long-term, high-quality mental health interventions within the community. And this person is expressing concern that some of the responses or some of the options being considered now would provide kind of acute care in the community, but they're concerned about the longer term access to quality mental health care. Can anyone on the commission kind of speak through how the commission is addressing or considering this problem? Related to that, can anyone speak to the role, one way or another, that DCFS within Illinois plays in policing families and the systemic racism that occurs within that system?
So I'll say a couple of words about that. It is a difficult issue. So there are the gaps for the marginalized populations, which we all recognize. We hope that the 708 Mental Health Board will help that in some way. That won't go on the ballot until 2026. So that's a long time. That's a long time off. Also, there are not enough mental health practitioners, not enough clinicians. You know, not only clinicians, but those who convene groups and those who recognize the community trauma and the individual trauma that's gone on. We've started developing those things throughout the community and even at the SIU School of Medicine, which is helpful. Dr. Johnson is exactly right about the community health workers. They've been invaluable in helping us understand the mistrust that is there, but they have not been disseminated as widely and where they should be. I think they're a step forward in this. And then the state of Illinois has actually seen fit to fund the State of Illinois Behavioral Health Workforce Center, which is actually located here in Springfield, to try to help the issue with the number of those who deliver the care and build the programs are there. But in recent years, we have seen, various healthcare organizations withdraw from mental health care and withdraw hospital beds. And it goes back to the same thing. We've got to get the whole community on board here and have an understanding of the value of this for it to work. So it is really quite multifactorial. And at least I think that the right conversations are at a higher level now than they were a couple of years ago, I think.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cruz. With that, that'll be the end of our webinar today. I want to thank the panelists for your incredible insights and your incredible answers today. I also want to make sure that people are aware of the Massey Commission website. One thing that I want to kind of laud the commission for is you have done what I think is a fantastic job with transparency. You let the public know when your meetings are. You provide live streaming of those meetings. You provide a number of materials online, which allows people like me to keep up to date with the work of the commission. And as we noted earlier, the commission's work is very much still ongoing, with the final recommendations due later this year. So there's still a lot of opportunity for community outreach and community input on that work. So for those who ask questions in our function or Q&A function that we weren't able to address today, this hopefully will not be the only opportunity you have to ask those questions. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been incredibly informative, and may everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.